She sighed heavily as they clashed. Her momentum sent her stumbling backwards, and at once she's on the ground. Hey, could you look where you're going? She exclaimed, clearly flustered to be on the ground. She shook her head her vision, to clear vision, and a hand reached down to help her stand. Easy there. Let me help you up, a deep voice said. As Sarah took the hand to be pulled to standing, her eyes gazed into some very deep amber eyes. Seraphim was awed by her company's strength and composure. She knew she couldn't feel the slightest hint of irritation. She had seen this man before, and all at once she knew immediately she was in the presence of Alaron Valerius. Are you all right? He asked as she once again stumbled, and he helped to steady her on her feet. And she looked him over. Alaron Valerius stood to his full height, his demeanor composed, his presence immediately commanding attention. He was in his mid-20s, his youthful features accentuated by a certain sharpness in his gaze. His hair, a deep chestnut brown, was neatly styled, but carried a slight tousled look, as if he had been caught in a gentle breeze. His eyes, a striking shade of amber, were intense and observant, reflecting both intelligence and a hint of something more profound, perhaps a weight of responsibility or unspoken thoughts. Alaron's build was athletic and well-defined, hinting at a life of disciplined training and physical activity. He wore the ceremonial robes of the Luminalis festival, but unlike the vibrant, colorful attire of the younger participants, his garments were more subdued, in deep tones of emerald and gold and indigo, each color symbolizing his transition into adulthood at the age of 25. The robe was adorned with subtle patterns of vines and celestial symbols, indicating his readiness to embrace the full responsibilities of adult life within Elysium Garden. His demeanor was calm and confident, though there was an air of quiet contemplation about him, as if he was someone who often kept his thoughts to himself. As Seraphim looked up at him, she noticed a small pendant hanging from his neck, a simple yet elegant piece, likely of personal significance. It caught the light as he moved, hinting at a deeper story behind the man standing before her. Again, miss, are you all right? I've asked this is the second time. Are you sure you didn't hit your head when you fell to the ground? Seraphim's heart skipped a beat, and she felt a flush rise to her cheeks. No, I'm just fine, and I'm so sorry, she stammered, regaining her balance finally. I truly didn't see you at all. Eleron's expression softened into a smile. No harm done, he said, his voice warm and composed. I can see clearly you're in a hurry. Yes, Seraphim replied, biting her lip to keep it from quivering, glancing around for any sign of Harriet. My sister, she's supposed to be getting ready for a presentation, but she's decided to play instead. Alaron chuckled, giving his face some lightening, with a smile that reached to his eyes, and his gaze also following Seraphim's line of sight. I understand. This excitement is contagious. Do you need any help? Before Seraphim could respond, Harriet's laughter echoed nearby. Setheron had gained again, and she had dodged in the intricate game they played. Seraphim heard her laugh and noticed her rushing behind another group of musicians setting up for the festival. There she is! Seraphim exclaimed, agitation creeping into her voice as she gestured to the couple. I feel like I've been following them for 10 years, she said with exasperation. Well, let's catch them then, Alaron suggested, a playful glint in his eye. Seraphim smiled. Yes, let's go get them. Together they wove through the bustling crowd, the vibrant energy of the festival swirling around them. Alaron's steady presence was behind her, presence behind her was a calming influence, and his attentiveness made the search feel less daunting. They navigated through clusters of festival goers, sidestepping children racing between stalls and weaving past tables adorned with intricate tapestries and festive treats. Alaron bounded ahead of Seraphim, his strong legs and sharp gaze triangulating the couple as they continued in their playful game. Setheron had a hold of Harriet's hand, and the two had been clearly having another quiet moment together. Harriet's eyes were closed as Setheron kissed her deeply. Alaron cleared his throat and they started jumping about a foot each. Harriet and Setheron had some deep coloring from their interruption. I trust you know how to handle it from here. Alaron looked to Sarah as she walked up behind him. Yes, thank you, Alaron. I appreciate your help in locating Ree. We must get to the center stage in just a few minutes. I am so happy that we will not miss our presentation. Seraphim bowed low and smiled warmly at Alaron, and then quickly turned to Harriet. Seraphim briskly took Harriet's arm and led her away. Ree, I have been looking for you for 10 years. Seraphim whispered forcefully. The scolding tone caused Harriet to grin sheepishly. I'm sorry, Sarah, but Setheron and I were having so much fun. Alaron caught up with the girls, and he and Setheron walked in quiet contemplation. Setheron looked sheepish to any other passerby. He also looked as if someone had taken the time to tell him his puppy was missing. He gazed at Harriet and sighed. Alaron spoke to him at last. Ah, young love, it's a beautiful thing. You clearly feel very deeply for her. Yes, I do, sir. Setheron smiled broadly at his future mentor. Alaron had multiple jobs and was also a trainer for the upcoming trials. Seraphim and Harriet linked arms, and Sarah whispered to Harriet, I saw you in Setheron. Harriet again blushed scarlet, her breath quickening. Sarah, please, 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 whatever you do, don't tell Mom. Her whispered plea made Seraphim smile wanly. I wouldn't let Mother know about such a juicy tidbit. Now, Ari, I might, and Leander, and I think that Alaron behind us also saw you and Setheron mid-kiss. Really? Do you think he really did see? I'm absolutely mortified. Harriet glanced back at the men behind them. Alaron waved with an impish grin. The girls sidestepped two musicians who were leaving to get a cup of ale around the corner, and one almost knocked Harriet over, as they were holding a large bass-type instrument. Seraphim tucked Harriet to her as she also ended up off balance. Got you, Seraphim said, gently grabbing her sister's arm. The announcer was making his way through the application tests and was making sure that most people could see those who would be presented when the girls arrived at the stage. The steps they climbed were about 6 or 7 high, and the platform itself about 12 meters across and 15 meters deep. There was a curtain that separated the front from the back of the stage to allow the performers to get ready. Harriet and Sarah went to wait behind that curtain as they started to have others line up for their presentation. Sarah went to the edge of the stairs as Alaron and Setheron were still waiting below. Speaking to Alaron, Seraphim smiled broadly. Harriet was glad we were able to meet you today. She said to tell Setheron we will continue the festivities after our ceremony. Thank you, Alaron, for your help today, and for getting us here on time. It's my honor. Enjoy your ceremony. You'll see you when it is all over. Alaron and Setheron walked around to the front of the stage, and Seraphim and Harriet peeked around the curtains to see if anyone else is coming to see them. The festival was in full swing as the town square continued to buzz with energy and excitement. Lanterns now glowed softly, casting a magical ambience over the scene, their flickering light dancing on the faces of the assembled townsfolk. Seraphim had walked downstairs, but still was close to the stage. Still scanning the crowd for familiar faces, she spotted Jolena, their mother. Seraphim waved her over, and she quickly ascended to be with Harriet. Harriet, in spite of her play with Cetheron, still looked radiant, her long hair cascading down her back, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Seraphim felt a surge of pride and a tinge of anxiety as she made her way to the front to watch the presentation. As they came to Jolene, and Harriet, an arm went around her shoulders, and Leander and Ariana were both holding her firmly in warm embrace as they smiled at each other. Harriet looks beautiful, doesn't she? Ariana's voice broke up. Seraphim turned to Ariana standing beside her, her eyes also on Harriet. Leon was taking on his 1 millionth job of the night as he said a few words in Jolenia's honor. I have special pride for this lovely woman and her dear daughter tonight. I have watched Harriet grow in grace and maturity and have seen her rise to multiple challenges this last year. She and her sister are going to great places, and I have no doubt that each is going to make our families proud. Jolenia, it's been an honor to work with you all these years, to watch our children grow up together. Harriet, may the mother tree see you through. She does, Seraphim agreed, smiling as tears welled with Leon's words. Tonight is a big night for her. And for a lot of us, Ariana added, glancing at the stage where other participants gathered. Ariana had a younger brother who was also in the presentation. As all family members made their introductions, some additional fanfare was brewing. A woman stepped to the center stage. She exuded an aura of tranquility and authority that immediately drew the attention of everyone around her. The crowd quieted as they recognized her to be none other than elder arborist Sylvana Greenwood. She was a woman of timeless grace, with long silvery hair cascading down her back, catching the light with every movement. Her skin was fair and smooth, lined just slightly with marks of age that spoke of decades of experience and wisdom. Her eyes, a vivid green, were sharp and penetrating, yet they held a softness that made those who met her gaze feel both seen and understood. Sylvana's attire was the epitome of elegance, with flowing robes in shades of deep forest green, adorned with intricate gold embroidery depicting the vines and leaves of the mother tree. The fabric shimmered subtly, as if woven from the very essence of the garden itself. Around her neck she wore a pendant shaped like a leaf, made of an iridescent material that seemed to change color depending on how the light hit it. A symbol of her deep connection to the natural world she so diligently protected. Her movements were deliberate and graceful, each step measured and full of purpose. The crowd has instinctively quieted in her presence, a true testament to the deep respect she commanded as one of the oldest and most revered members of the Elysium Garden. Despite her authoritative role, Sylvana's smile was warm and inviting, radiating a calm assurance that put those around her at ease. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was melodious and soothing, carrying the weight of countless ceremonies like this one. Yeah, buffering. Sorry about that. That's because it keeps dropping frames. Alright, where was I? I'm not too worried about the sound content as long as I'm not too worried about the picture content as long as the sound content gets there. Where was I? This is why I said I wasn't going to stop. Despite her authoritative role, Sylvana's smile was warm and inviting, radiating a calm assurance that put those around her at ease. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was melodious and soothing, carrying the weight of countless ceremonies like this one. Yet each word was infused with genuine care and attentiveness for the young lives she was about to guide. Welcome everyone to the Luminalis Festival, she began, her voice clear and warm, carrying over the gathered community. Tonight we celebrate the cycle of life, the new beginnings and the transitions that shape our journey. We honor the newborns, the children, the adolescents, and the who have reached significant milestones. The crowd remained hushed, their intentions and attention fully on Sylvana. She gestured to a line of parents holding tiny bundles in swaddled in soft embroidered blankets. Each family stepped forward in turn, presenting their babies to the community. First, we have a little Alicia, Sylvana announced, smiling at the proud parents. The mother, with tears of joy in her eyes, handed the infant to Sylvana, who gently cradled her with practiced grace. Alicia, may your life be filled with love and light, and may you grow strong and wise. She dipped her fingers into a bowl of rose water, sprinkling a few drops on the baby's forehead as a blessing. The crowd applauded, and the family beamed with pride as they stepped down from the platform. One by one, the babies were brought forward, each receiving their blessing and a small charm to symbolize their entry into the community. The charms made by the artisans of the town were intricately designed with symbols of protection, health, and happiness. As the last family stepped down, Sylvana continued. We also honor the children who have reached their 5th year, beginning their journey into the wider world of learning and growth. A group of eager 5-year-olds bounded onto the stage, their eyes wide with excitement. Among them were Juniper, a bright-eyed girl with curls of chestnut hair and a dress adorned with tiny flowers. Adorned. Can't speak sometimes. They were presented with small books and wooden figurines, each carefully crafted to symbolize their new stage of life. The books were bound in soft leather, embossed with intricate designs, while the figurines depicted various creatures and symbols of the sanctuary. The children clutched their new treasures with wide-eyed wonder, their small hands trembling slightly with anticipation. In a solemn ritual, Sylvana handed each child a small piece of fruit from the mother tree. The fruit, shimmering with an iridescent glow, was said to imbue wisdom and growth, marking their readiness to embark on their journey of learning. As Juniper took her piece, she marveled at its delicate texture and sweet fragrance. She took a cautious bite, and her face brightened with delight as the flavors burst in her mouth, a mixture of sweetness and subtle hints of the magical essence of the mother tree. Their parents watched with pride, their eyes misty with emotion. They knew that this ritual marked the beginning of a new chapter for their children, a step into a world of knowledge and growth. As Juniper savored her fruit, the crowd cheered, their support and encouragement echoing through the square, celebrating the new generation's entry into the world of learning and discovery. Today, Sylvana began, her voice clear and strong. We gather to honor these young souls who stand on the threshold of adolescence. The Luminalis Festival is not just a celebration of life, but also a recognition of the growth and the potential that lies within each of us. She gestured to the adolescents, and they stepped forward in unison, each looking both proud and slightly anxious. Sylvana's gaze was warm as she continued. Turning 15 is a significant milestone in our community. It is a time when we leave behind the innocence of childhood and embrace the responsibilities and the wonders of becoming an adult. These young ones are the future of our garden, and today we celebrate their journey. The crowd erupted into applause, the sound echoing across the square. Sylvana motioned for silence once more and turned to the first in line. One by one, she called them stepping forward, each stepping up to her with a respectful bow. A ceremonial chalice, intricately designed with symbols of life and growth, was brought forward. Sylvana held it aloft, the liquid inside shimmering with golden hue. Harriet, she called, and Harriet stepped forward, her face glowing with excitement. Her dark curls bounced as she moved, and her brown eyes sparkled with happiness. Sylvana's voice softened as she addressed her. Harriet, your compassion and joy are a light to all around you. May your heart remain pure and your spirit ever curious as you grow. Sylvana handed the chalice to Harriet, who drank it from it with a solemn expression. The golden liquid shone against her lips, a mark of her crossing into adolescence. Sylvana then presented Harriet with her own engraved token and placed a delicate crown of daisies on her head. Harriet's smile was infectious, spreading through the crowd. She held the token tightly as if it were the most precious thing in the world. One by one, each adolescent stepped forward, received the chalice, took a drink, and returned to their place. Sylvana's words varied with each child, tailored to recognize their individual strengths and personalities. The crowd's applause grew louder with each passing name, a living testament to the love and support of the community. Finally, as the last child returned to the line, Sylvana spoke to them all. You stand now as young adults of Elysium Garden. May your paths be blessed, and may you continue to bring light and life to our community. With a final wave, she signaled the end of the ceremony, and the crowd burst into applause once more, a celebration of the past, the present, and the bright future that lay ahead. The adolescents, now standing tall, grinned at each other, basking in the moment's significance. They were no longer children. They were the future. Next, Sylvana turned her attention to the young adults who had reached the age of 25, marking their transition from adolescence to adulthood. One by one, they were called to the stage, including Alaron and Leander, though Seraphim made a point not to meet Alaron's gaze. Leander, Sylvana announced, her voice ringing with warmth. You stand here today as you cross into the realm of adulthood. With this transition comes the weight of new responsibilities and the promise of great growth. May your path be guided by strength and wisdom. Leander stepped forward, his demeanor a mix of nervousness and excitement. Sylvana placed a garland of leaves and flowers around his shoulders, a symbol of his new role. The ceremonial chalice was brought forward once again. Sylvana held it aloft, and the crowd fell silent in anticipation. Leander, drink from the chalice of Luminalis, and may its essence fortify your spirit for the journey ahead. Leander accepted the chalice with a steady hand, taking a measured sip before returning it to Sylvana. As the crowd burst into applause, celebrating his passage into adulthood, Leander stood tall, a mix of pride and determination in his eyes. Amid the cheers and claps, Seraphim and Ariana could be seen cheering the loudest, their voices cutting through the celebration with genuine enthusiasm. Their support and joy for Leander's achievement were palpable, adding to the festive atmosphere that surrounded the ceremony. Sylvana then turned to Alaron. Alaron, she said, today you step into adulthood, taking on new responsibilities and embracing the fullness of your potential. May your journey be filled with strength, wisdom, and courage. We welcome you into this new stage of life with pride. Alaron accepted the chalice with a steady hand, drinking deeply from it before returning it to Sylvana. The crowd erupted in applause as celebrating his transition. Alaron stood tall, his expression one of determination and gratitude. Thank you, Alaron said, his voice steady. I am ready to embrace the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. Sorry, something popped up. I was making sure. The ceremony concluded with the crowd's cheers and the vibrant atmosphere of the festival embracing both Leander and Alaron as they began this new chapter of their lives. As the applause died down, Sylvana addressed the crowd once more. Tonight we celebrate the cycles of life that bind us all. Let us remember the importance of the of community, tradition, and the bonds that unite us. May this festival be a reminder of the light that guides us and the hope that sustains us. Leander, still basking in the afterglow of his ceremonial moment, noticed Seraphim and Ariana approaching with bright smiles. He straightened up, a mix of pride and nervousness in his eyes as they reached him. "Hey, Leander," Seraphim said warmly. "You really did great out there." Leander's face flushed slightly, his usual confidence replaced by a hint of shyness. "Thanks, Seraphim. I was a bit nervous, but it felt good to have everyone's support." Ariana chimed in, her excitement evident. "You were fantastic, Leander. I've never seen anyone handle the chalice with such grace." Seraphim grinned, reaching out to ruffle Leander's hair playfully. "Nervous? You looked like you who owned the stage. Just wait until tomorrow. Training's going to be a whole new adventure." Leander chuckled, his eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and anticipation. "Well, if it's anything like today, I'm looking forward to it. And hey, thanks for cheering me on." Ariana beamed. "We wouldn't miss it for the world. You've earned every bit of this celebration." Leander's smile widened, and he playfully nudged Seraphim. "I guess I owe you both now. Oh, how about a festival treat? My treat." Seraphim smiled but shook her head. "I appreciate it, Leander, but I need to check on Harriet. She's probably surrounded by well wishes, and I want to make sure she's okay." Leander's smile faltered slightly, a hint of disappointment crossing his face. "Oh well, maybe another time." Ariana looked at Seraphim with a knowing smile. "I'll go with Leander for the treat. You go check on Harriet. We'll catch up later." Seraphim nodded grateful. "Thanks, Ariana. I'll see you both around." As Ariana and Leander headed off towards the food stalls, Leander's disappointed expression lingered. Seraphim made her way through the bustling square, her thoughts focused on her sister, but she couldn't help but glance back at Leander and Ariana, noting the way they interacted as they disappeared. Seraphim then made her way to Harriet, who was surrounded by well-wishers. "You were amazing, Ree," Seraphim said, pulling her sister into a tight hug. "Thank you, Sarah," Harriet replied, her eyes sparkling. "I'm so glad you were here with me." The next morning, to the east side of the mother tree, the sounds of wooden staves beating in rhythmic pattern echo through the training ground. Here we find Seraphim high-towered, dusting the dirt off her legs before lunging to Leon's soul. She raises her staff in an effort to sweep him off his feet. He chuckles as he steps to the left, dodging her attack while easily using the momentum of her swing to flip her. Seraphim tried to redirect herself into using the change in direction to land on her feet, when she instead landed in a heap on the hard ground on her hip. "Seraphim, you're slower today. What's got you preoccupied?" Leon asks. "Oof," she groaned, rubbing the sore spot on her hip as she rolled onto her back. "That was a bit rough, don't you think?" "Now I know you're distracted. If I flipped you that easily, not the great Seraphim," Leon says as he extends his hand to help her to her feet. Seraphim glares at him as she tucked her loose hair behind her ears. The Seraphim staff clattered to the ground. A determined glint sparked in her eyes, undeterred by her recent tumble. With a swift motion, she readies herself for hand-to-hand combat, her muscles tense with anticipation. "Say that to me again after I have you laying in a heap." She smiled as she taunted, extending her hand in a mocking gesture for him to step up. Leon smirked at her, a playful challenge evident in his straightened stance. "Ready to taste defeat again, Seraphim?" he taunted. The two danced to an invisible soundtrack, the air crackling with the energy of their impending encounter. "Come on, old man, you think this is my definition of play? There is more to me than this." Seraphim's eyes dart in anticipation, and her breath slows as she thinks about the lessons Leon had been reminding the other initiates to hold. She took several steps backward to give herself the desired momentum, and then launched herself forward. The repulsion of her speed and strike took Leon off balance. Seraphim's first strike aimed for Leon's chest, her elbow aimed with precision, but he deftly sidestepped, narrowly avoiding the blow. Seraphim responded to his counter attack by leaping over his sweeping leg, her feet barely grazing the ground. They continue blow for blow, counter for counter, until Seraphim manages to counter his latest attack by ducking under the swing of his arm. She quickly pulls his left arm towards her by the elbow, as she uses her leg and the momentum of his attack to flip him over her and onto his back. His groan is heard across the entire training field, and another sound alerts Seraphim to a clear audience member. She turns only to find Setheron clapping as he steps onto the training field. Well done, Sarah. Looks like your training is paying off if you manage to flip that off. Leon staggers back to a standing position and starts to stretch his arms and legs. His fall was short-lived, but he looks over to Sarah and sighs frustration clear. He gives a wan smile and extends his hand to hers. I know when I need to take a break. I'm glad to see your progress, Sarah. He walks off the field to get a drink and ice for the shoulder he fell on. Seraphim looks back at Setheron. She rolls her eyes at his exaggerated praise. Seraphim couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at her victory. Well, Setheron, you're welcome to try. I mean, if you weren't too worried about getting a bruise or two, she playfully replied. I would, but your mother sent me to fetch you for your evening duties. Can't neglect those girls. Setheron puts his hands up defensively. Her words, not mine. He's right, Leon says, swinging a staff about. Can't neglect your duties this close to the trials. Seraphim scowls in defeat as she begins to gather her training bag and staff, swinging the bag over her shoulder. She steps onto the trail leading home. I'll see both of you later.